what you've done. Tooth of a crime you will not outrun.
I think one of the first musical concepts that came into the realm was the opening track was This Is War. And that was inspired, it was actually kind of a dream. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you get lucky in your sleep. You might be in a sleep state or just waking up, and the universe will just kind of drop a concept into your lap. So, yeah, that was one of the first ideas. So I was comfortable in bed, and I was like, I better get up and document this. Went to my studio and just started laying all the parts down that I heard in my head, and yeah, so that would be the first one, I think. Well, it depends. Sometimes something will just happen. We'll be noodling around. I'll be sitting in front of the TV and I'll have a guitar and a riff will pop out, or a chord progression and a melody. But for this record, for whatever reason, a lot of it was more routine than previous records. I think it was the idea of sitting down in my studio and maybe starting with a drum part I heard in my head, and knowing that once the demo was done that the drums would change. And I'm not gonna, it's important that when you demo something, if you hear an arrangement, a rough arrangement, that when you submit it to the band, that they have the ability or the option of integrating their own concepts into it. Otherwise, who wants to play exactly what somebody tells them to play? And so that's real important to me. So I would sketch out the drum part, and if it would inspire me to write a riff or a chord progression, and then if I liked it, then add the bass and whatever, and then if I heard a melody, add that. Yeah, I mean, it really depended on the kind of the day, whether it would be finished or not. Some songs would be finished very quickly. Some songs would end up being completely thrown away except for one part. The Silver Tongue was one of those songs where that riff, that was actually a bridge for another idea that I had. And I remember listening to this track going, well, it wasn't really getting me. I like to have perspective. I like to step away from ideas for a few days or a few weeks just so I can listen with fresh ears. So that way you can be really honest with yourself and you're not so immersed in it that you lose your perspective. And so with this one particular idea, I remember thinking, well, I'm not really sure about the rest of these parts, but that bridge part seems really strong. I bet I could come up with something based solely on that riff. And so what I did then is I wrote what I put together what I like to refer to as a shell. And what that is you come up with an intro, verse, the riff, obviously, a chorus maybe, and then I like to leave a certain spot open so that Mark can, if he has a bridge idea, will combine with it. It's kind of similar to what we've done for years, where do you have a part that goes with this part? And I feel like that way everybody feels like they have a role in the song, as opposed to just saying, okay, here's the demo, you're going to play this, you're going to play this, you're going to play that. That's no fun. Nobody wants to do that. So that was how a lot of these songs, This Is War, same sort of thing. It was, here's the shell, here's the parts, they're all laid out. Do you have a bridge that would work with this? And the beauty of doing it that way also is that he thinks of things, he's a different approach. And so the beauty is when you get to that B section, the first 2 minutes is like kind of a specific vision, it's a specific, you're in a certain lane, and then all of a sudden you take a total, it's a total about face. You're like, whoa, where's this going? Because another human being has added his idea. And I think that's really important. It's, as the years have gone on, I've learned to become more structured. I wasn't initially, I was real like, scattered. But then as the years have gone on, I've become, I think, a little more skilled at the idea of staying focused. And it's actually my stepdad told me this. He was talking with an author once, and that's where I got this from, was him. And the author said that, he gets up every day, goes into his office, and he writes for X amount of hours, and then puts it away. And that really stuck with me, because early on in my career, I was one of these guys who thought, you have to wait for the universe to give you inspiration, and so I'd just be sitting there, where's the idea? When's it coming? Sitting in a field all by myself. Where's the idea, universe? It's not here. So I've learned to chase it down. And that's the beauty of technology too. It's amazing, like with what you can do if you spend the time and learn certain software. Like, so I love Easy Drummer, right? It's just it's easy, and so any little drum part that I hear in my head, I can program it, and then build from there. And it's very liberating compared to the way it used to be when I first started trying to write 20 some odd years ago, where you're like, call up your drummer, hey man, can you come over, I think I have an idea, let's jam. Now it's all right there, you can do it all. So that's great. You can get everything that you're here in your head out, and that's awesome. This time I used Universal Audio plugins. So I switched to the Universal Audio, I think it's the Apollo, one of the Apollos. And so with that, they've got a really great set of amps that you can integrate. And since I'm a diesel guy with Alter Bridge, I got the VH4 plugin, and it sounds great, and it's very inspiring, and so that worked really well for this batch of demos. Yeah, like for the solo stuff, I'll go a little more organic, a little more vintage. So it really depends. I like really. There's a. It's called the 5E3 circuit, and it was in the old. Like, I think they made them from '55, I think, to early '60s. Fender did, and so I really like the way those sound. It's what Neil Young used. It's what Billy Gibbons used to use. It's just a very specific sound that I like in the solo realm. And so yeah, it's those old deluxes, old Tweed deluxes sound great. I just actually found another one I just picked up, and so I'm kind of hoarding them because there's only so many made, and I just stick them in my amp closet and save them for when I need them. I like the original. I mean, there's just something about the way that I couldn't explain it from a technical standpoint. My producer Elvis and I have talked about this, and he laid it out from very technical terms why he still prefers to use the actual amps in the studio. But when I'm at home and I'm not wanting to, make my dog go deaf by turning up a Herbert or a VH4 in my studio, it's the plugins work awesome. They're great. Plus, I can also, a fair amount of stuff was demoed like back. I'm trying to remember. I did a few things like in hotels, if I was out touring or something. So that's great as well. You can just put on some headphones and not have to bother people. Yeah, definitely. You're in a different. It's kind of like when you're at home, or at least when I'm at home, and I'm doing it day in, day out. I get into a real rhythm, and I almost to the point where it could be unhealthy, because even though I sit here and tell you I like to start at 9 in the morning, stop at 6 in the evening, that's not always easy for me to do. It's not always easy for me to shut it off. So that's where I'll go eat dinner, but I'm still working in my head, and my wife and I will sit down to watch a movie or something, and I'm still working. And like, honey, can you just give me like 5 minutes? I got to go track this real quick. And then 5 minutes is 3 hours, and then I'm in trouble. But no, she's actually I couldn't ask for a better partner in that sense. She's always understood that is that's part of the process. So it's really great to have that. Yeah. I try to. Anytime if I'm singing, I always do it used to be 45-minute warm up. Now after doing it for years, I've come to realize that it's probably not good to sing that long before you need to use your voice, because you kind of burn it out. So I do it's like a 9-minute warm up. And that usually gets me in the pocket I need to be in. As a guitar player, I'll try to play for 15 minutes just to get everything going again and loosened up, and I'll do my old warm-ups that I've done for 30 some odd years just to loosen up the digits. It's funny, this record, a lot of the vocals were done pretty quickly. I think just because I've been working for so many years with Elvis, we've made so many records together, and the beauty of that is he understands this instrument really well now. He knows, he can hear it when it's getting tired, and so we would run something, run down, take a break for 5 minutes, and there's a lot of silly banter that goes on, he's really funny, so that makes it fun. So he'll press the talk back button and tell me something funny, make me laugh, and then once I feel like it's rested enough, then we'll do another pass, and usually vocals are done in about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and we usually have everything that we need, and which is way different than the way it used to be back in the day, where I remember the first record I ever made for a major label back in 97 or so. Vocals were a long process, and it was really intimidating being in a real studio, and I was still learning how to use my voice, and so vocals could take days. We still don't have the right whatever, and so now it's very streamlined. I feel like we've kind of, after years and years and years and years and years of doing this, you learn how to do it appropriately so you get the best performance. So the guitar I used mostly for this record was a guitar that PRS made for me. It was just something that I needed, it was a certain sound that I heard in my head, and a certain neck dimension that I wanted, and they were kind enough to put it together for me. And it was something I used somewhat on the last solo record when I was touring this summer. And it's a black PRS, and it's just got a certain top end to it and a certain cut with the mid-range that really works well. Just sits in the mix perfectly, and it's a great lead guitar too. It just cuts like an absolute champ. No, very rarely. I just I don't know why. I just like to keep moving forward. I have friends that make records, and they'll listen to them in their car, and it's like I can't do that because I'll pick things apart. And I'm just like, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done this, but just let it go.